my name's Caitlin. I'm a holistic nutritionist, and today we're so excited. We're going to be having Dr. Lisa Wiedemann here. She is an eye doctor. She's been carnivore close to 15 years. She has so much wisdom to share with us. We're so excited. Welcome, Dr. Lisa.
Thank you, Caitlin, so much for having me on. You know, I am just so passionate to keep spreading the word of health and try to get everybody to understand how we've been so brainwashed through mass media and through decades. Most of us have eaten garbage for most of our lives. So it's really kind of exciting, this whole movement of keto and carnivore that's evolving. And yeah, I'm really happy to be in the position I am, where I feel having almost 15 years solid of carnivore at this point, and being a medical professional, I have, I guess, a tad bit of credibility that just didn't come upon this willy-nilly and say, hey, let me potentially risk my life and do this crazy fly the freak flag diet, as I called it back then. But yeah, it's just really great to be able to spread the word and help people in any way I can.
So how did you kind of find this and like break out of that idea of like, 6 to 11 servings of grains and you eat your fruits and veggies? I mean, it's so counterculture.
Yeah, for me, for those who don't know my prior history coming into this, but I had a long 30-year history of sugar, carb, processed food addiction and binge eating and eating disorders. So I was beside myself that I couldn't figure out how to stop and how to have a normal relationship with food, because I didn't. And so I went through a whole gamut of, because this was way before Facebook and Instagram. And so here I am just sort of surfing the internet, and and I had heard about and took to Paleolithic eating. I read a book, Neanderthal by Ray Audette. The Schwarzbein Principle was another book. And then, of course, there was Atkins. And all of this through attempting paleo, and the Schwarzbein Principle was basically like no flour, no sugar. And I was realizing, I was like, okay, there's something to this. And I kind of kept digging in, because what would happen is on paleo, you could eat fruits and vegetables and meat and seafood, right? Anything that was naturally here on earth. But I quickly realized that, if I was cleaning a quart of strawberries for my kids, every other one went in my mouth. And even though fruit was a safe food, I realized later I can't eat it. I can't have any taste of sweet, because the cravings are ridiculous. And then it would send me down the slippery slope into the carb ditch, that I call it. So it was a long road for me of going in and out of trying all these things and then falling flat on my face and binging again. And heck, a bag of dried apricots wouldn't last more than 20 minutes because it was like candy, but, oh, I can have it. It's apricot, right? And then just say, okay, well, it's got to be just fresh fruit. Well, you know what? I'd cut open a mango, I'd eat half of it, and it would call my name the other half until I ate it. And it was just a problem. Same thing with pineapple. I cut up in a pineapple and I keep going and keep going. And I did not understand at that point that there actually is such a thing as a true sugar addiction or carb addiction. And so I just kept trudging along. And fortunately, I came upon March 9th, 2009, a website zeroing in on health, which is basically a carnivore website. It was eat meat, drink water. And there was a group of people, a small group, maybe like 50 or 60 people, who had branched off. They actually got kicked off of a famous low carb website at the time. And because they had their own thread in there, because they thought, well, if the first 2-week inductions period of Atkins works so well, why do we have to stop? Why do we have to climb the carb ladder? And so that became a whole big thread that got kicked off, and they formed their own forum. And I was fortunate enough to come upon it because there was journals in there. Each person like wrote their own story and their own daily, ongoing experience with this. And there was two women in there in particular who spoke about their eating disorder and their total 100% recovery from this carb and sugar addiction. And I was like, whoa, wait a minute. Okay, I'm all ears, right? And I couldn't wait each night to get home and get to my computer and read in these journals and talk with these people. And the next day I just said, well, this seems a little crazy. This seems a little extreme. Really? Wait a minute. What about wait, no bread, no pasta, no rice, no vegetables, no salad. Wait, how could that be healthy? What am I doing? But just having faith in what I had read, and these women who were so genuine in their discussion about how this helped them. And then all the other people on there were either for weight loss, for arthritis, diabetes, for depression, and how it is. All different walks of life come to this for their own reasons. And so I just said, heck, I'm just going to try it. I'll be my own N=1 experiment, and I will start really researching and figuring it out along the way. And they would post Vilmar Stephenson, Fat of the Land, the writings, this book that there were explorers and talking about these primitive societies that ate meat, and not by bread alone. And Owsley the Bear Stanley is another gentleman. He was the sound man for Grateful Dead, and he had been eating this zero carb meat only way of life for about 40 years. So we took to reading his writings, and it was just amazing, Caitlin. It was like as each week went by, the cravings lifted, the optimistic outlook of, wow, this actually is healthy. I feel amazing. And it got to the point for me that I wanted to tell everybody about it. And I wanted, because then, you start reading things like Lustig and how we shouldn't be eating sugar, and all of the scientists and the information that was coming out really led me to think there is really something to this. And when you think about ancestrally, what man was intended to eat, if there was no such thing as processed food, grocery stores, if nothing came in a box, a bag, a bottle, or a jar, and we were left to our own devices to nourish ourselves with food, we would hunt and catch animals and fish and maybe forage for some edible plant matter. But the reality is only 20% of it's edible, and there's a lot of poisonous stuff out there as far as plant matter. So, and nutrient density is meat and fatty meat. So the more I studied, the better I felt. And it got to the point where I wanted to let other people know about this, but nobody really wanted to hear. 15 years ago, I was like, all right, you're a nutcase. It's like, okay, yeah. And then I just sort of sank back into living my life, my carnivore zero carb life. And I had met Kelly Hogan way back then too, because she actually came into the group about 6 months after I did. And yeah, it very interesting that it wasn't until about 4 years ago when Dr. Sean Baker was on the Joe Rogan podcast. And then that had a little bit of an explosive notoriety to this. And then Jordan Peterson and Michaela Peterson. And then so I perked up. I was like, oh, wait, some other people are coming on board onto my team.
You're not the only one.
Yeah. And it felt like, okay. So then I started reading in those, I guess Sean Baker had, I guess maybe an Instagram, and, I started following, and I decided, well, let me just make a separate Instagram account where I'll follow just these crazy meat eaters like me. And so there was born Carnivore Doctor. I just came up with the name. And what happened was I would read in the conversation, the comments, and I would read people saying, well, that's all well and good now. You feel good, but wait till you have a heart attack in 5 years. This isn't sustainable long term. This isn't healthy long term. And I was just like, wait a minute. Let me raise my hand here and try to like get a word in. And so I started like commenting on a lot of these things because I said, well, because at the time, I guess I was doing it 11 years. I said, well, I'm 11 years into it. And sure enough, within, a few months, all of a sudden I had thousands of people who were following my account because I started posting different things that I eat and how, as an optometric physician, I mean, I've been an eye doctor for over 30 years. There was different things that I was actually helping my patients with: dry eye, blepharitis, different eye problems, by trying to gently, without seeming like a quack, encourage them to drop their flour, sugar, grains, and seed oils and processed foods. So it's been a very interesting path that I've come here to, and it just got to the point where now for about I'm going to say for the past 10 years I've been coaching people, but seriously doing it for probably the past 3 or 4 years that I've come into more of the social media. And it's so rewarding, as you know, to help change people's lives and get people to understand that this really, in an incredible way, is healthy.
Oh yeah. I mean, I remember when you guys were talking, because I had just started my blog like in 2010, and I was paleo and then, more keto when I realized I couldn't handle the carbs. But I remember thinking how crazy you guys were. Like, because
Yeah. Like, what do you
what
mean you don't eat spinach or onions or any of
yeah.
these cool keto things, right?
What's
Or
the
paleo?
guy, the guy with the wife that wears like the vintage looking outfits? What
Oh yeah, Joe and
Anderson.
Charlene Anderson.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
because
I
they had
remember
they were about 20 years in.
yeah, they were, I thought they were so nuts.
Right.
And
And
then,
she had the reason they came to it is she had a severe case of Lyme's, and he was seeking out through his own research, and somehow, I really think it was at the time about 20 years. So they're probably 30, 35 years into it now. But he came across this whole way of healing for all sorts of autoimmune issues. And so he I believe at the time they ate only ribeye and drank water. That was it. Every meal was ribeye. And in an incredible way, she healed. And he joined in solidarity with her to say, okay, I'll do this with you, hon. And yeah, I'm from what I know, they kind of went out of the limelight because they had 2 sons who they were also feeding carnivore, and they actually had people calling out like DIFUS on them. And it's just kind of a terrible twist to that story, but they kind of went a little bit under the radar after that. But
you mean
there's
like protective services?
yep.
Okay, that's
Yeah,
terrible.
yeah.
Yeah,
DIFUS is Division of Youth and Family Services, so that's what I knew it as. But yeah, that they were actually reported to authorities
oh wow.
of abusing their children.
Oh no, that's terrible. I mean, yeah, I don't like to talk about my kid much because of that kind of thing. It's just like, I mean, he's not carnivore because he's so healthy. I just don't think it's necessary. I mean, he doesn't have any allergies or anything. So I'm just like, I feed him more kind of a paleo, kind of a Weston A. Price approach. And I mean, I feel like that's enough for a healthy kid. And, if he had a specific issue, maybe, but I mean, he's really, really healthy and strong. So, but people think, even if you mention your kid, that they think you're automatically like feeding your kid carnivore. And I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with it, but it's just, it feels too difficult for me, or, it just doesn't seem necessary to me. So,
Yeah. I mean, the important thing really is that you're not feeding them seed oils and French fries at a restaurant and potato
oh yeah.
chips, all that.
That's something I'm really strict about. I mean, is seed oils. I mean, I don't want him eating Chick-fil-A or any of that crap. I'm like, I mean, I'll give him a McDonald's hamburger without the bun, no problem, but I'm not
Right.
giving him the fries or the nuggets or any of that.
Exactly.
Like,
Yeah.
hell no. I'm like, no way.
And that's hard enough as it is now, because the next thing you know, they're at a party and there's a bowl full of goldfish crackers, which guess what, have seed oils in them.
Oh
And
yeah.
it's difficult, aside from maybe trying to saying you don't want them really to eat flour or sugar because it's not healthy and beneficial to anybody. But forget about that part of it, just the whole seed oil part. And it's then you'll
And I
hear
mean,
people.
after a certain age, you're going to lose some control if you're going to let him go to birthday parties or things like that. So I just try to feed him. I mean, we're not at that. I'm still in control right now of what he eats, but at some point, like my sister's kids are older and, she's not able to control every bite that they eat. And I mean, you want to just, I think, instill in them the desire, like even sometimes if he has a snack or something, he still wants like real food. He still wants like hot food. Like he still wants a hamburger. He still wants eggs. Like he eats scrambled eggs like twice a day sometimes, and it's like he still wants that. Even if he's had a muffin or something weird outside the house, he's like, wait, this is, I just want him to know like what is real food. And I'm not going to be happy till I get that, that warm, hot meat or animal based something.
Yeah, and you have to just picture for you that he is being brought up in your environment, and that's going to be a huge impact. And just things that you say, it could be like, you know, there's going to be cupcakes here, and it just have discussions about it. And because I know Kelly Hogan's kids are pretty on board with not having junk, and they don't eat junk at parties. So I don't know how that all happened, because it's kind of crazy how so much revolves around food. So every party, every social situation, even sports, there's just junk everywhere. Junk.
Well, kind of on that topic, I mean, it's Thanksgiving next week and holidays, and I know you have a group about sober holidays, and how do we keep from gaining and losing control? Because it seems like you have one day it's supposed to be just one day where you eat a lot, but it seems like the last 6 weeks of the year becomes this free for all pig out buffet.
Yeah. And, for me, it had to be through the process of learning that this really is truly an addiction, and not only just an addiction, a pretty significant, severe level of addiction. Because like no other addiction, like, alcohol, drugs, all like these other addictions, if you're a recovered sober alcoholic, people don't come up to you and say, oh, you got to just try this cab. It's a vintage. It's so good. You just have to try it. Just have a little. You only live once, right? Like nobody does that. And nobody would do that to a drug addict. Like, hey, we're going to go shoot up in the back. Like people are not around these other addictions, pushing it on other people. And partly is because the average person in your world doesn't not have any concept that there is an addiction that you are trying to abstain from, and it's everywhere. So then it becomes like, oh, Aunt Sue made her famous chocolate mousse, she made it just for you. And or you're in the break room at work and the table is flooded with junk and home baked stuff, plus bags of stuff and candy, and everywhere you turn. You cannot even go into a Home Depot to buy a hammer without seeing the latest Reese's peanut butter cup that's got crushed potato chips inside it, or whatever it is. And it's the triggers. And so my whole thing, because of my background and myself realizing how it's so easy to slip into that carb ditch and go back into your, what I call DOC, your drug of choice, which for many of us, we tried to fill an emotional void. We are eating for entertainment. We're eating for emotional reasons, either anger, anxiety, depression, boredom, loneliness, even happiness. You could turn to food. And it's so hard to change that relationship with food, especially around the holidays, because when you're addicted to something and you've been, let's say, a lot of people don't want to use that term addicted or an addict, but I do, because I look at everything that triggers me and I look at it and say, not my food. I will not eat it. And it's not that I can't have it anymore now. I choose not to have it because I know that I can't have it. I have to abstain. And if every holiday season, starting at Halloween, you start allowing yourself just a little Kit Kat here or there, because it's just one piece, guess what? One is too many and 1,000 is never enough. And that leads right down into, now there's more candy the rest of the days because there's leftovers. And then, well, now we're going to practice this Thanksgiving pumpkin bar recipe I just saw. It looks so good. And next thing you know, you have a piece and the rest of the pan is calling your name. So I cannot have that in my house, and I won't have it in my house, because I don't have, now listen to this, everyone, I don't have sober behavior around a pan of pumpkin bars or chocolate or nuts. You can even go to something that most people think is healthy and okay, but to me, nuts actually are too high in omega-6. They're really not that healthy for us. And I stay away from them completely because they actually really do have an addictive component to them. I can't eat 3 macadamias. I want to eat 3 handfuls and then see if there's any more in the bag. I don't have sober behavior around a bowl of mixed nuts. So
they have a lot more carbs, I think, than people realize, and they're hard to digest. I've gotten some of my worst stomach aches with pistachios and stuff like that.
Yeah, and cashews, and they're really not a health food. And I hate to say that because people go like, oh, she is a quack. But I'm like, no, you know what? Almonds are very high in oxalates. You can look at each nut individually and see what the omega-6 number is. And some of them actually get close to canola oil.
Oh, wow.
And I did a whole video with Dr. Chris Kenobi because his Ancestral Health Foundation is really big on trying to spread the word about how literally dangerous and toxic seed oils are. So it's interesting. He had a whole page about nuts that I put up in my video with him to show everybody what the linoleic acid level is in these nuts. So, but getting off on a tangent with the nuts, because I'm just making a point that sobriety for me is abstinence. And if I keep letting myself, every Halloween it'll start, then go into Thanksgiving, where then actually the whole Christmas holiday season starts way back at Labor Day now. I mean, there's gingerbread houses out, there's Christmas trees up, and there's so many food-related social, traditions around these holidays, and work parties and friend parties and the actual holiday parties. And what am I doing? Am I allowing myself to just have a little? I don't want a little. I'm going to keep circling back and have more because that's my tendency. And I don't have control over that. I realize I am totally not able to moderate any food that is not in my, what I call my sober circles. I have a video where I describe a green, yellow, and red what I call sober circles. And, in the green for me is meat, seafood, eggs, and water. I never binge on any of those things. I don't binge on ground beef or steak, right? I don't binge on scallops, right? I don't binge on eggs. Unless there's cheese, a lot of cheese mixed in the egg, I could definitely binge on then. So I'll get on to the topic of dairy and cheese. I think for many it is inflammatory. It has casomorphines. It does have an absolute addictive component to it. And you can even look that up. Go on PubMed and type in cheese and an addiction, and it seems crazy. But yes, I don't have sober behavior around cheese. So I have to either eliminate it. It's not in my refrigerator here. I will have it out on a burger. Why? Because there's portion control. And, I will have it out on a charcuterie board, or if I'm at a wedding and maybe there's a nice cheese spread and there's not much else for me to eat, I will allow that. But in general, it was the whole holiday thing that I realized everybody is so quick to make an excuse so they can get back to their drug of choice. Even if they've been good, they stuck to their keto or their carnivore way. But then all of a sudden it's like, oh, all right, come on. I should just give myself a little permission here, and again, there we go. There's the start of the excuse, the start of the slide down the slippery slope. And then guess what? It's January 1 and you're feeling inflamed and 10 pounds on and like, caca.
Or 20.
Yeah. It's fast.
Yes. Sometimes it's like I convince myself like, well, it's already too late. And then I'm like, okay, well, we'll just wait till January 1st or 5th.
There's the free ticket, the free pass in your addiction. I call it the ditch demon that lives up in there, who's trying to convince you and root you on. Like, go ahead, Caitlin. Yeah, you're right. We've already screwed up a little here. Let's just keep going. We'll get back on track. It's going to say anything in your head that it wants to say to get you back into getting that dopamine hit. And it's very insidious. And that's why this was 3 years ago now. This is my 3rd year hosting the Carb Sober Holidays. The first year I called it the excuse trifecta because of Halloween, Thanksgiving, and Christmas. And it was always how it's simple to make an excuse. Well, it's this, or well, it's only a little, or well, I don't get to have this apple pie the rest of the year because it's the special one. It's the excuse. It's always the excuse to put something in your mouth that you've already decided is not healthy for you. So that's one of the things that I talk about a lot in the groups is we have discussions around planning out ahead of time and thinking out ahead of time. You determine what's what I call those sober circles, the green, right? The yellow for me is like the cheese. Cheese is not in my green circle. It's in that warning zone. It's allowed only in those situations I just said. And then there's the red circle. And out there are, pretty much, let's just say everything else. But there's times where I will have people every month in the groups decide if there's something in that yellow circle that needs to get kicked into the red. And for some people, it might be something like pork rinds. It's carnivore. It's a nice, crunchy, salty snack. It might help get people through that snacky time at night, right? But when people start talking about like, yeah, once I open a bag, I eat the whole bag, right? Okay, well, it could maybe then be in your yellow circle where you're allowed to weigh out 1 ounce and you can have the ounce. Maybe that will be your yellow warning parameter. Or there might have to be the thought process of, yeah, I tried that. Well, isn't it working so good? My hand keeps going back in for the 2nd ounce and I finished the bag. Well, guess what? You got to kick that out of the yellow into the red. And now you do not bring pork rinds into your house. Why? Because you realize you don't have sober behavior with that food. And if your goal is to get off all medication and to resolve all your health issues and hopefully, ideally, get down to a lean, natural, normal body weight, if you have those goals, you have to think long and hard about what you're putting in your mouth and keep deciding, what you might need to give up. And it's hard. It's really hard. But everything you put in your mouth, you have to decide, is this going to lead me to health or to harm?
Yeah.
And for me, even something like, let's just say a fresh ball of mozzarella, which, gosh, do I love that stuff, right? But no sober behavior with me. I open it up, I cut off the ends first, because of course they're the best. And then I'm chopping into it, and I might try to put away some of it. And then 30 minutes, 50 minutes later, it's yelling my name. I'm like, well, might as well just finish it so I don't have to think about it tomorrow. And I finish the damn thing, right? Well, for the health or harm for that, I have to say that's not healthy for me mentally. And it's not healthy for me physically to put that much dairy in my body. So that item is on the harm side. And that's why it's no longer ever in my refrigerator. So it comes down to simplicity. People could say, well, why don't you eat salad? Why can't you have salad? I was like, well, I could. I just really don't think there's much nutrient density in it. So I don't bother. Why would I buy something that within a few days is going to be wilted and in the trash? And, it doesn't have a draw for me anymore. I mean, I could say I used to love salads. I used to eat so many damn salads with dried out lean chicken breast on it, trying to lose weight for so many years. I ate bowls because then I made big bowls of salad because that's what I was eating. And that was all I was eating. And now I'm like, I am so happy to not eat salad. Trust me, I will eat ribeye. I like so many different types of meats, and I never get bored. People say, isn't that boring? No, boring is waiting online at the pharmacy for picking up drugs, and boring is waiting in the waiting room of your doctor's office. That is boring to me. I don't have to do that. I'm almost 59 next week, and I'm thinking about life in general and me looking around many times now at others my age. And I look at it and I'm like, damn, I am so happy I found this way of eating as long ago as I did. And back then when I was 44 and found it, I was pissed off that I didn't find it when I was 24 because I suffered for so many years. And I'm sure I did, damage to my health through those years of binging and eating garbage. But I just have to look forward and say now I feel great. I can do cartwheels on the beach. I walk every day. I get outside and get sunshine. I lift weights twice a week. And it gives you such an optimistic outlook when you get free of addiction.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like you were saying, like plain pasta. Do you really want that, or is it all the toppings? And it's the same with salad.
And it's the butter and the cheese. Let's face it.
And the salads, it's like you want the
salad dressing,
the pecans and the cranberries and the
candied pecans and the blue cheese dressing.
Yeah, and all that. It's like if you just had to eat lettuce by itself, would you really want that? And I mean, I got into this really because a lot of the things in my health had improved, but my digestion was so bad. That was really, and taking out those vegetables was the first time I actually felt better as far as my digestion. And because I used to eat like a head of cauliflower and a head of broccoli like every single day. Like I thought it was so good for me. And I mean, I would cook it, but still it was just so bad. And so that was in 24 hours to feel better. I was like, oh wow, this is amazing.
Yeah, and people don't realize because that's the last thing on their mind that they would ever think is as to what they should eliminate is something like broccoli or cauliflower. It's like, no, that's healthy. That's the vitamins and minerals and nutrients you need. I'm like, it doesn't really have much bioavailable nutrient value in there at all. But nobody wants to believe you when you say that. And I think though it's becoming more and more this grassroots effort of all of us here trying to put out videos like this and get more and more people exposed to the fact that you really shouldn't be putting that stuff in your body if you really want to get to optimal health. And I feel badly for people who got stuck in the vegetarian route, the vegan route, because I think they are just the most misguided unfortunate scenario because it becomes cult-like and they identify as being a vegetarian, and then it becomes an issue for them to stop. And, but it's wonderful to see so many stories now of vegetarians that are now turned on a dime, flipped and went carnivore because of a lot of grassroots efforts of people who are prior vegetarians who are really on what we're talking about.
I think it's funny when somebody thinks that long-term carnivores have never tried being a vegetarian or vegan. I mean, I was a vegetarian for a year, and that was when my health was the absolute worst. That's when I got the sickest, and I was eating tofu every day. When I do it, I do go all in. So I was like eating tofu 2 or 3 times a day, or some kind of soy something. And I'm like, do you really think I haven't tried being a vegetarian? Really?
Yes. Some people say that it was going vegetarian that got them healthy, but those typically are the people that came from the standard, I call it the standard atrocious diet, that SAD, SAD, instead of standard American, it's standard atrocious diet. And those people who turn to vegetarian will initially notice quite a significant change in their health because you stop eating packaged crap food typically, although potato chips are certainly vegetarian, but
Oreos are vegan, I think.
yeah, just those kind of crazy things. But for the most part, people who make that switch are trying to do it the right way and read up about it and try to follow, the correct way to do it. And they will notice an improvement, dropping some of that garbage that they had been eating. But ultimately, it's so nutrient deficient. And like I said, I feel badly for people who get stuck in that. They have to figure their way out of it. And we're here to help, right, Caitlin?
That's right. Just every time you think about it, just stick a ribeye in your mouth. just wait.
Yeah, there's just so much of health issues revolve around what we're putting in our mouths. And I'm sure that as time goes on, that this is going to spread more and more because, now we have people like, Dr. Anthony Chafee, who's a neurosurgeon, Dr. Philip Ovadia, a cardiac surgeon, Dr. Robert Kiltz, an endocrinologist, an endocrine reproduction physician. Just the fact that there's more and more medical professionals on board with this, that it's hard for an outsider to say, well, that's absolutely nuts. What are you, you're just doing a fad diet, right? And I said, and then the other thing is like, well, you got to realize your cholesterol is ridiculous and you're going to have a heart attack. And I'm like, no, actually, my triglycerides are perfect. My ratios are great. I've got nothing wrong with that. And if you're really interested, I said I could name about 4 cardiologists right now who eat the same way. And I'm sure they don't take their heart health lightly. That it brings a level of authority to this. And again, why would people like Dr. Tro, he's all in on, I'm not sure if he's carnivore or keto or what, but there's a lot of physicians now that have broken away from this broken sick care system that we have to really try to help and treat people with this proper, what Dr. Ken Berry says, the proper human diet. And yeah, I forgot, I didn't list him. He's like one of the top of the heap here of being a general practitioner who he himself eats carnivore. His wife is also pretty much carnivore. I think Nisha eats a little bit keto, but very little. And to have him on board and expressing in so many different ways on so many great YouTube videos about how this is healthy, people will say, well, I can't eat carnivore because I have gout and my doctor says I can't eat red meat. I'm like, yeah, you know what? Red meat doesn't cause gout. Let me give you a news alert here that you've been, bamboozled. But it gets very frustrating to try to go against everybody's longstanding ideas around food that I hate to use the term brainwash, but we have been, all my life it was, you know, whole grains, high fiber, lean meat, right? So I was eating boneless, skinless chicken breasts like it was going out of style, because of course, I was always trying to lose weight. From a young kid. And I'll tell you, if anybody wants, you can go on my Instagram account and I have a pinned post there where I show my obese father, my obese mother, and my obese brother standing around me. And I did a post about, your genetics don't dictate where you're going, because I now realize, looking at the whole, stepping back through all my experience and who I am and what I do and how I eat, I look back now at my family and say, damn, every single one of them is a carb addict like I was, or I am. I say I'm always in battle with it, but I can't judge them. I tried my hardest through the years to educate, because damn, there's mayonnaise in that refrigerator and salad dressing all full of that seed oil. And oh my God, the worst too is the container of, I can't believe it's not butter, that everybody is like, oh, here's my healthy alternative. Look at me. I don't keep butter in my fridge. I've got this. I'm like, yeah, you got a bunch of toxic chemicals instead of a natural product from a cow. Hooray. Look at you. And so, yeah, but it's the old, I say you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him carnivore. And I feel people have to have their own why that makes them cry, their own, kind of significant, serious personal issue that brings them to this, whether it's vanity issues of being overweight and just, and wanting to be able to do more and function and wanting to be able to get down on the floor and play with your kids or your grandkids. There's a simple why like that, all the way up to people with devastating diagnoses of, cancer. And it's really promising now with Dr. Chris Palmer's work in the whole mental aspect of this, with healing bipolar, schizophrenia, even Parkinson's, depression, and anxiety. It's rather remarkable and incredible that that this isn't getting out more. And let's hope that his book will help spread the word more to more practitioners.
That's amazing. Yeah, I have a lot of people in my family with depression and stuff like that, and I was sending them stuff about his book. So, Dr. Lisa, tell everyone where they can find your work and connect with you.
Yeah, so I am mainly on YouTube and Instagram. Things I post on Instagram go to Facebook, but I'm not really very active in there. So really Instagram and YouTube. And I have a website, which I guess you can just link in the notes if anybody's interested in joining into my carb sober holiday. There's December left, so I have some joining in for the month of December. And then in January, I am going to have a whole new platform where people will come in and be able to have discussions amongst themselves and have me contribute, and I'll host meetings, and people will be able to attend all of them, because really support is key in this. And I don't know for you, Caitlin, like if, you, when you first came into it, if you had a group you clung to, but that zeroing in on health group for me was everything. And that's part of why I'm so passionate for two things. I didn't mention yet this, but I host meetups, which I met Caitlin in person for the first time in Nashville when I hosted one in Nashville, because it's so empowering being around others who are like-minded, who are striving for optimal health, and who have discovered that this way of eating is really what is going to lead us there. And so joining people together to talk about that, because I honestly, the sugar, carb, processed food addiction, which I am very strongly outspoken about. There's Dr. Robert Sywis, carb addiction doc. He's a bariatric surgeon. He is also another one in this circle. He's carnivore, and he's very outspoken about the addictive component of this. And to me, unless you've got support around you, it's so hard just to be at your home with nobody else in your family eating this way, and having the different stuff out, and having cereal and ice cream in the freezer and all that. It is so difficult. So, I say support is the opposite of addiction. And so I'm really passionate about that. My group support meetings and the meetups, and then just trying to put out YouTube videos to try to educate people as best I can.
Well, you're doing amazing work, and nobody would ever guess that you were 59. So definitely, steak and meat is the fountain of youth. So
Doing good so far. So far, we'll see, right?
Better than Botox.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Lisa. Please subscribe to my channel and Dr. Lisa's channel. It's at Carnivore Doctor, right?
Yes. Yep. Carnivore Doctor. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, Caitlin.
See you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.